Today on Nova Legends podcast, I have Potomac coach Keith Honore, legendary coach who won two state championships at Potomac as head coach, won one as an assistant coach under Kendall Hayes as well. Played at Potomac, and retired from coaching recently, and is just keeping up with the game. And it's good to have him around. Coach, great to meet you. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me, man. And before we get started, let me just say, I'm kind of new to social media, Facebook anyway. And one of the first platforms that I joined was yours. And some of the guys that you've had on here, man, it's just brilliant, and it's really fun to listen to some of the guys. And you do a phenomenal job with your interviews, and I'm honored to be on your show.
Oh, well, thanks for saying that, Coach. I've been wanting to have you on for a long time, and I just wanted to make sure the timing was right. And I do really appreciate those very kind words. But let me give people your background. You're a network engineer at CACI, huge government contractor locally. You are a 92 graduate of Potomac, as I mentioned. And then you joined the staff for the 94-95 season. I believe that's the year they won a state title. So I think Coach should give you credit for that state title if he has it. But then you became the head coach in 2006, and then you stepped down in 2022. So there's basically only been two head coaches in Potomac for the last almost 50 years, 45 years, I guess, right?
That's correct. Yes, that's absolutely correct, man. I was fortunate enough to be on Kendall's staff, and again, one of the most brilliant basketball minds I've ever been around. So I was able to not only play for him, because I played for Kendall for 2 years, and then went to college myself for a little bit, and then came back and was able to coach, and I learned so much, not just X's and O's, but just managing a high level program and managing people and managing coaches. And, I have to give Coach a lot of credit for my success.
Yeah, I think that job at Potomac, when you have the kind of horses he had and you've had as well, it is man management. It's managing the community, managing expectations. It's a different type of role than some jobs. I mean, but I was trying to, in the early days doing this podcast, we were talking about which programs have had the most Division I players. And I think it's Potomac in Northern Virginia. I think TC Williams, Alexandria City has got a strong argument. They've had quite a few. South Lakes has had quite a few. But I think Potomac at one time I counted like 20, 25 Division I players.
Yeah.
And we're probably forgetting some. There's just been so many. But let me finish introducing you. We'll get back to Coach Hayes and that run. Like I said, you had two state championships. In 14 and 16, I believe, Coach.
Right. Yep.
You're runner-up in 2021. You're six-time regional champions. Three sons. The late Kyle Honore, who I actually saw play in his last game. I was at that game when the Patriot game, unbelievable game. Tajon and Cameron. Just the three kids, Coach? Did you have the other kids?
No, I have four. My oldest son is Brandon.
Okay.
Brandon played for me, graduated in 2010. So it's Brandon, then Keon, and then Kyle, and now Cam.
Yeah, Keon played at, I believe, Virginia Wesleyan College?
He did. Yes, sir. Virginia West.
And Cameron's not really a basketball player, right?
No, God played a really, really funny joke on me. He made me smart enough to help a 5'8", 140-pound kid play college basketball. Keon, 5'8", 140 pounds. And he said, you know what? I'll reward you with a 5'10", 160. So he gave me Kyle, and Kyle was able to get a full scholarship to Wingate University. And then he played a really, really funny joke on me. He said, I'm going to give you 6'2", 195, but he don't want anything to do with basketball.
Wow. What does he like? What does he like to do?
He's a baseball player at Potomac. He's playing baseball. He's having a wonderful career over there. He's doing really, really well. So super proud of him.
Yeah, and you might have mentioned this, Coach. I just missed it. Did Brandon play basketball as well?
He did. He did. Yes, sir. I won my first district championship with Brandon at Potomac.
Okay, so how do you feel about coaching your sons? Do you think it's always a good situation? Can kids develop the way they need? Can coaches manage neutrally all their own kids? Do you think it's generally a good situation to coach your own kids?
I do. I think each situation is unique, right? And I think each situation needs to be evaluated because there's a lot of variables that I don't think people think about. But I will say, in my experience, it is the most rewarding thing in sports that I've ever done. My all three of my children and I have had some very intimate conversations. At times it put a strain on our relationship, but at times it brought our relationship a lot closer. And there were times where we thought about, would it be better for one of them to go and play somewhere else? Each one of them, we actually thought about them playing somewhere else, and the end result was no. There is no better coach for you than me, and I've always left that conversation open to them. They've always had a voice in that situation. And to be transparent, I was thinking about stepping down after Keon to go and support him at Virginia Wesleyan. But Kyle made it clear to me, no, Dad, I want to play and I want to play for you. So I still had the energy, I still had the passion, and so I signed on, to at least another 4 years or 6 years after that, because Kyle was a few years after Keon. And so I had some of my greatest sports memories are with my children. So I wouldn't trade that experience for anyone, for anything. But there are some situations where I think it's not always good that a parent coaches a son. It's a bad environment, or it puts a strain on the relationship to the point where you don't understand you're a father first. I think the situation needs to be evaluated, and other situations may be better for the father and the son.
Yeah. Well, one thing in this day and age of kids transferring to private schools, the least likely to transfer to private schools are the dad is the head coach, except for
Right.
I guess Kevin Harris's son
Yeah.
did. Do you find yourself after a while forgetting that you're the father and you're just the coach, and you treat Kyle the same as you treat one of his teammates, or they're always your sons, and it's impossible to separate the two?
That's never it's impossible to separate the two, but it's not impossible on how you treat them in the different roles. And what I mean by that, I used to have a parent meeting, and in the beginning of the year, I would ask all my parents, I'd say, if your son is your favorite player, raise your hand. And of course, every one of them did. And so did I. I said, I'm admitting my son is my favorite player in the whole wide world,
Mm.
but you don't have to worry about me mistreating your son for my son. I've already had a conversation with my son, and I've already explained to him everything that you get here, you're going to have to earn it.
Mm.
And the other piece is, as coaches, we tend to want to treat our children tougher than everybody else. And I think a lot of that is in the name of trying to prove to everybody I'm not showing him favoritism. But our kids don't deserve that. So I have a lot of coaches calling me now who are coaching their kids, asking my advice on how to navigate it. And the first thing I tell them is, don't treat them any different than you would treat any other player, right? And so if your son or daughter does something, and if another player did the same thing and you wouldn't take them out of the game, don't take your son or daughter out of the game. They don't
Just prove a
deserve it.
point. You're not going to prove a point
Yeah,
with your own son.
that's right.
Yeah.
They don't deserve it. And no matter what you do, people are going to think what they want to think anyway.
Yeah, yeah, it's a tough situation. But one thing for sure is coaches' kids tend to be great players. So there's got to be a way to make it work, because you don't want to lose, that talent, especially kids as talented as your kids. With respect to Kyle,
Mhm.
I feel like the basketball community has really rallied around him. He seems to be present in benefits. I see photos of him all the time. I know there's gear that I'll make sure people have access to it,
Mhm.
if they like to get some.
Mhm.
Basketball and coaching is all about memories, because you don't make a lot of money coaching at the high school level generally.
Mm.
So the memories are so important when you win the state championships. Memories, the relationships you have with the kids. Has your relationship with basketball changed a lot since Kyle passed? Since Kyle was one of your great players, but it's got to be a little hurt involved as well. How has your relationship with basketball changed since Kyle passed away?
So, I'm still relatively young. I still have a great passion for the game. I could coach another 15 years, God willing. I still love the game. I don't necessarily enjoy the culture of the game now. I don't like where it is. I don't necessarily like where it's going. But I still have an opportunity to keep my foot in. I have a handful of coaches who will call and say, "Hey, coach, do you mind coming out? When you guys were at Potomac, I saw you run this. Do you mind coming out, either teaching me and my coaches how to teach it, or do you mind coming to practice and implementing it for us?" And so that's my way of still staying in it, right? I still have fortunately, guys think I'm smart enough that they'll call upon me and ask for advice, and I get to talk shop. That's what we call it. I get to talk shop, and I find myself on the phone for an hour or two at a time, talking to guys about basketball. So I still have one toe in it, right? And I'm still able to get my fix by going out to practices and either helping or just advising. And I love that. I do. And as far as, the basketball community and how they rallied around Kyle, they not only rallied around Kyle, and not just the basketball community, but the community as a whole has uplifted my family. And it's something that we're extremely grateful. And they still do to this day. We love hearing stories, about Kyle, and our family learned a lot about Kyle that we didn't realize, and we can touch on that a little later, but I still have a foot in it. I still love the game. I'm still connected to a lot of guys, and right now I kind of serve as a kind of a consultant, if you will. I'll help anybody. If anybody calls, I'll answer that phone call. I love going out to practices. I love still going around and just watching how I'm fascinated with how guys do different things, right? The beautiful thing about basketball is there's so many ways to get from A to Z. And that's the beauty of the game. We were a team who we were going to play fast. We were going to pressure you as soon as you got off the bus. We were going to meet you in the parking lot. We're going to pick you up full court. You're going to play at our pace. You're going to play at our tempo. And if you can beat us that way, God bless you. But then it's really cool to go and see some other guys who are very methodical, who are very deliberate, right? I was always fascinated by that. And I still enjoy that to this day. And then the last thing is just being transparent. I still to this day am unable to watch videos of Kyle. I hadn't got to that place yet where I'm able to sit down and I know one day I will, and I kind of look forward to the day where I can emotionally sit and just enjoy him, at his best. And so I have a collection. I've got all his games. I've got all his highlight films. And someday there will be a day that comes where I'm emotionally able to sit there and do that. But right now, just being transparent, I'm unable to.
That's more than understandable.
Mhm.
Um, we'll return to that. When you talk about your kind of role as a consultant,
Mhm.
I think about Coach Ingalls on the bench at South County. I think about Coach McCool. I was just talking to
Mhm.
Will Robinson about his role on the bench. I think a lot of coaches enjoy that when their coaching days are over. They may not have to deal with the parents anymore. They may not have to deal with all the stuff the head coach has to deal with on a daily grind. But it's
Mhm.
still nice to be part of the game and relied upon.
It is, and so I've had some coaches offer me a position, and it was some people that I was really, I mean, some really high level people that are really, really smart. Um, and I was honored. But, when it comes to basketball, Julian, and it comes to, I believe in commitment. And I wasn't able to commit
Mm.
like I think a coach or assistant coach could commit because, my main focus right now is Cam and trying to be a father and support him through his baseball ventures. Now, once he's done, maybe I'll do that. I don't know. But right now, I tell them all the time I can't, because if I'm an assistant or a head, I need to be there every single day. I want to be at everything. I want to give those kids, 100% effort in which they deserve. So maybe one day when it's all when Cam is done, I'll reevaluate and see where I'm at. But right now, I love just when coaches call and pick my brain. I love when they invite me out to watch their practice to kind of evaluate. I absolutely love that right now.
So that could, you haven't ruled out being a head coach again. That could, like a Jim Smith or Michael Harris, you could come back to the bench, one day full time if the timing's right.
Well, let me just say, life has taught me never to say never.
Right.
But I can't imagine a situation where I will be head coach again. Again, I'm just not. We've taken a team sport, something that was really, really beautiful, and we've individualized it. Basketball is so individualized now, and I don't know. I kind of feel like Coach Larinaga and Coach Bennett and those guys, where I don't know if I'm the right guy for this model right now, right? Because all I know is sacrifice, all I know is commitment, all I know is selflessness, and that's what I preach and that's what I teach. And scholarship guys were just as important. I mean, guys that were non-scholarship guys were just as important to me as scholarship guys. And right now, all we see are the promotion of scholarship guys, right? And what a head coach has to do now, I don't know that I'm fit for that. I don't know that I'm cut out for the promotion, the constant promotion of players and the constant promotion of individuals, right? That's what you have to do now to sustain. And I just don't know that I'm the best fit for that.
Yeah. So when you said that you have a problem with the kind of the culture of the game today,
Mhm.
you weren't talking about how the game is necessarily played. Yours is more about the way the kids are recruited, the social media, how you have to promote, the kids have to promote themselves, the coaches have to be involved in that, and how the money is coming down at the high school, even at the high school stages. So you're referring more to that. The game, the way the game is played. Are you fine with the way the game is played?
Oh, I'm fine with the game, the way the game is played. I don't think that's really never changed, right? How the game is played is really never changed.
Mhm.
It's the other stuff that you just mentioned that we're watching unfold in front of our eyes that I believe is an unsustainable system. I don't believe that the game is going to be able to sustain this way. I think we're going to see changes coming one way or the other.
Yeah. Do you have any solutions for the mess we've created?
Honestly, in my opinion, make a rule and stick to it,
Mhm.
right? Like, we've gotten from a place where we don't want to tell people no. Hey, listen, I want to transfer to this school. No, the rules say you can't, so you're not, right? And keep it that simple. And now it's just like we've opened up this can of worms where whatever you feel, whatever you want, you can have. And it's put us in a tough situation from a sports perspective, right? I mean, look at the situation that just played out at Tennessee, right? With that quarterback. I mean, you literally listen to what I'm about to tell you. We have college kids holding out.
Mm.
Like, did we ever think we would hear that?
No, it's crazy.
Yeah, and here we are, and this isn't going to be the first one. This is just the first. This is domino effect, right? You're going to see more and more of this, and you're going to see more and more coaches do, the good coaches do what Tony Bennett did, with Jim Larinaga did, right? And you're going to start to see a domino effect, I believe, of coaches saying, you know what, I'm not built for this, and so I'm gonna gracefully bow out.
And that you think that affects the high school level as well? I mean, like for example, I watched Tom Izzo. He seems to still love it. Some of these
Mhm.
old timers, um, the Houston coach that just drew a blank. I'm sorry, I love this guy.
Kevin Sampson.
Kevin
Yes.
Sampson.
Yeah.
Yeah, they seem to thrive on it.
Mhm.
But most, you're right. Most of the college coaches. I interviewed Jeff Jones last 2 years ago, and he
Yeah.
said I can't do this much longer. Even I've talked to
Yeah.
soccer coaches that feel the same way as well. Do you think it
Mhm.
also though affects the high school jobs as well?
Yeah, it's a trickle down effect, right? It's a trickle down. I think they're starting to feel it more like in the private school sector, like like the WCAC. I
Right.
think it's hitting there. I think the public schools. I think that I don't think that model will change as much because um, you know, I just think, when that's never going to change. When I had a high level player, when I had a high level player, I always had the risk of poaching, right? I always had to worry about somebody from the WCAC coming in or a private school coming in and taking those players, right? That's never going to change. So I think on that level, I think they'll be okay for a while. I think the only, as long as they just deal with the whole transfer thing and just say no, right? No,
Yeah.
unless you get up and move, you're not transferring, and if you do, you're going to sit out a year,
Yeah.
right? Like it's that simple, and we've complicated something that can be really simple.
Exactly. Well, but Potomac is in Dale City, I believe.
Dumfries.
Yeah, Dumfries. Yeah, right
Yeah.
there off Route One.
Mhm.
I always felt in the old days there was still a little bit of a buffer zone where it was a little bit tougher for your kids to get to
Mhm.
private school than it is for kids in Fairfax County or Arlington, Alexandria. I'm sure it
Mhm.
still is, but if you look at the Highland roster, if you look at the Paul VI roster, if you look at the
Mhm.
Bishop Ireton roster, you definitely have the Prince William kids on there. Have things changed? Is it easier now for Prince William kids to get to private school every day?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. You have there's good and bad in this. You have more parent involvement now than you had 10, 15, 20 years ago, right? It used to be the parents say, "Hey, listen, that's your high school coach. You do what he say, and if he has any trouble with you, you're going to have trouble with me." And the kids were left to the high school coaches to do what we were supposed to do. Where now there's more parent involvement, right? And now parents, and this is not necessarily a bad thing, their parents are making sacrifices to get kids to where they need to be. Like, COVID has certainly changed a lot of things. People were working from home, so they were able to drive their kids up to Alexandria, Arlington, or wherever they needed to be and get them to and from schools and things of that nature. So, and I don't want to sound anti WCAC here either. Let me be clear. I've actually have close relationships with a lot of those guys. I've had players that were supposed to come to me, and they were just so good, and they had an opportunity to go to the WCAC, and I encouraged it. Right, like, there's just some things that we couldn't offer that the WCAC could, and so I love those guys over there, and I think those guys are really, really good at what they do. So I'm not anti private school in any way.
No, no, unless they're taking your kids and
Yeah.
you really feel like this is the year that you could do something. And I know that always stings, even though you're right. If it's good for the kid, sometimes you have to do it. Now, look, Dumfries, the Potomac area has evolved over the years. I'm from Fairfax, and I played. I was only maybe 10 miles. I was on Ox Road, maybe only 10 miles from where you were, where the
Mhm.
school is. We played in the summer leagues. But now I follow soccer closely. Those
Yeah.
teams are highly Latino in soccer. So the
Mhm.
the demographics of
Sure.
Eastern Prince William County has changed. What are
Mhm.
what are some of the changes that you've noticed in the Potomac community since you played and also until now?
The 13 high schools in Prince William County.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, that's literally, we have Potomac in itself has three other high schools within a 5 mile radius, maybe four. You got Forest Park within 5 miles. You got John Paul the Great, less than 2 miles. You have Freedom High School, less than 2 miles, right? And so in that little Dumfries Triangle community, kids have four different high schools to choose from, right? And I mean, Hilton's pretty close.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hilton's pretty close. It's just right up Spriggs Road. So I think the saturation of high schools, has saturated. We like to talk about how the participation's gone down. Well, I just think with so many high schools, if you take away Freedom High School and send those kids to Potomac, or take away Potomac, send them to Freedom. Freedom is struggling to field sports right now. Some sports teams. If you take away one or two of those high schools that are in with a 1.5 mile radius, you don't have that problem, right? So I don't think it's all on kids are not interested. I don't think that's the only issue. I think having so many high schools now in Prince William County, has changed the demographics, right? And then let's just be honest. There was a time where Haymarket, Gainesville, and Bristol, that area was just rural, right?
Yeah.
And now it's a thriving community where a lot of people want to be there. A lot of people are moving out there. So so there's quite a few things that has contributed to the demographics of sports today.
Yeah. But you still think there's still just as many talented athletes in that area as before. That has not changed. You just have more schools to compete for the kids.
Right. That's right. I mean, Potomac has sustained basketball wise, and this is what I truly wholeheartedly believe in. And one of the things that thankfully has not changed. I think if the community believes that you are a good coach and can help their child at that particular sport, they will come.
Mm.
Look at what Daryl Overton did at Freedom, right?
Mhm.
He went to a school that traditionally had never won, and then all of a sudden, everybody wanted to play for him, right? You look at times where Hilton High School, when Tony Lilly was there, and Bill Brown and Lou Sorrentino, the community believed that those guys were really, really good coaches and they could help their kids obtain the goals that they were trying to achieve. So they all wanted to go there, and I like to believe the same for me. People thought that I was a pretty decent coach and I could help their kids. So they saw it fit to bring them to Potomac, right? And so I still believe that. I still believe there are talented kids around. And I still believe if we put coaches in place that the community believes can coach and can help their kids, they'll come.
Yeah. Well, Coach, you mentioned Coach Overton, who's
Mhm.
now over at St. James, and I guess they're
Mhm.
trying. They're trying. I'm sure they're going to succeed. Kind of an IMG model.
Mhm.
It's like an
Yeah.
academy. Kids can play sports. What are some of your thoughts about the St. James, the moves that they're making?
I think it's exciting, man. I think, it's one of the things I don't think we have. Like we don't have anything like that close by. I think they're all in Florida, right? They're out in California. I think there's some in Texas. So, I think it's exciting. I am really, really excited to see how it all shakes out and how they build that thing. I tell you, go and get a Tamika Dudley. That's certainly a heck of a foundation. Go and get a Daryl Overton. I mean, that's a heck of a foundation. I'm not very familiar with the boys basketball coach,
Mm.
but I mean, just those two names alone, whoever hired those guys were brilliant in their hires, right? It's clearly they know what they're doing. They've had success, and their model attracts kids, and their models win games. So I'm excited to see. Now, I'm not sure it's a good thing for the public schools.
That's where I was gonna like say, for example, your kids that
Mhm.
let's say go to Madison, kids that go to West Springfield, or talented kids that are Alexandria City.
Mhm.
Um, when you go to Alexandria City High School, you have your prom, you have all the things.
Mhm.
The high school experience that you and I had. I went to Robinson, you went to Potomac, and
Mhm.
it's incredible. I wouldn't give it up for anything. It's going to be different, I think, if you go to a St. James. Do you think the the solid high school player, not necessarily the Division I player, but maybe that lineman that like the fifth or sixth lineman that you need to have on your roster or whatever. Do you think those kids are going to go to St. James, or what kind of kids are going to go?
Whatever kid has the opportunity to go.
You think so?
Absolutely. I think, I think Daryl and Tamika attracts those type, and the kids in the community, what I just said a few minutes ago, they understand. Those guys know what they're doing, and those guys, kids go to college. The kids that played for him went to college. The kids that played for her went to college, and so, if there's any interest from the St. James in that fifth or sixth lineman at that public school, he's going. There's no doubt in my mind he's going to go.
It's going to be an interesting situation the way it all shakes out, but I'm sure we'll figure it out. Do you ever harken back to the golden days of Prince William County? You mentioned all the schools that were built, but wasn't there something very special when it was just Potomac, Woodbridge, and Garfield? I mean, those three teams were always loaded in football. They were loaded in basketball, other sports too. They were they were good in tennis. I know we played them one time. This and then Hilton came and then others came. But was there something magical when you had those three schools that were amazing? You guys were separate from the northern region. We had our own Final Four and everything. You guys had to go down and play Danville and
Yeah.
wherever else. Did you like the way it was?
I did. It was some fun times. I mean, the environments. I mean, football games on a Friday night were packed stands. It was electrical, right? Friday nights in Prince William County when Potomac, Woodbridge, Garfield played. It was magical. And I played football at Potomac, so I played for Bill Brown, and I just remember coming out on Friday nights and just seeing the sheer number, the entire community come out, right? And then the same with basketball. When we had that little gym at Potomac, I don't know if you remember,
Of
we
course.
used to have that little small gym, and we packed that thing. And when the other teams had to take the ball out on the sideline, we'd have our fans tugging on their shorts and right in their ears, and it was just really really fun times, right? And so now you'll get that now, when a Potomac played, when we played Patriot, right? When a Patriot plays Battlefield, when a Potomac plays Freedom, you'll get those things sparingly now. But it used to be every Friday night in Prince William County was, either a football field or a basketball gym was the place to be.
It was. And then the basketball coaches, you had Will Robinson, you had Kendall Hayes, you had Andy Gray, and then there was a guy at Garfield before Coach Gray. I can't think of his name, but
Larry Bell.
Larry Bell. I mean, he just
Yes.
it was
Yes.
every game was just a show. So you were there.
Mhm.
I think you may have been a sophomore on the team that played Grant Hill in the state. That was the B.J. Hawkins team.
That was the year before I got there.
That was the year
I was
before.
That was the year before I got there. I got there. That was 88, 89. I got there 89, 90.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
Were you familiar with that team?
I was. I
Yeah.
was. I was absolutely. The Stacy Henley, Sean Scales, B.J. Hawkins. I mean, that roster was loaded, man. It was really good.
Right. And yeah, Sherman likes to compare that team to some of the greatest teams. And look, I was there, I saw them play. They were great athletes. But I don't
Mhm.
know if they're one of the best Potomac teams I've seen because I saw the 95 team you're involved with and so many others. I,
Yeah.
I thought that team was very athletic, but I'm not sure if it was one of the best. But what would you say to Coach Rivers when we're arguing about those important subjects?
There's Potomac, and I'm gonna get as soon as some of my players see this interview, I'm gonna get phone calls and texts. I know it's coming, but there were some teams, and I think Sherman was probably a part of one or two of them that didn't make it to a state championship and didn't win a state championship that were better than you know maybe some of our state championship teams. I mean, we've had an immense amount of talent at Potomac, right? And that particular team that we're talking about is absolutely has to be in the conversation as one of the
Is
best
that
teams.
right?
Yeah, I think 95, clearly 95. I think our 2014 team, Trey Porter, Randy Haynes, and that particular team, I think are the three teams that you would have to if you had to, put a argument together, those were the three teams that you would have to argue, in my opinion.
To give Coach Rivers his propers here, he did mention your 2014 team was one of the only, like, quote unquote modern team that can compete with the great teams of yesterday. He's always elevated that team. Quickly, I want to get back to your days in high school. Are you surprised of Coach Rivers' success? You were there when
No,
he was a player.
no, no. Brilliant, brilliant basketball mind. I mean, I was, he was on my staff. He was on my staff for probably 6 or 7 years.
Oh, is that right?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. He was my assistant on the 2014 state championship. He was my assistant on the 2016 state championship team. So no, just he understands. He's a great basketball mind from an X and O perspective. But the other thing that he does really, really well, in my opinion, is he forges really good relationships with his players, right? And once we all know, once you do that, once a kid trusts you, once a kid believes in you, there's nothing that kid won't do for you, and he'll give you maximum effort every single day. And now you have a chance to be really, really good, and that's what he's done over there at Patriot. Another great example of Patriot. Coach Nimero I've always thought Coach Nimero was a great coach, and he had some competitive teams at Patriot. But when Sherman showed up, that community believed he can coach. They believed that he could really help their kids, and now you see kids wanting to go to Patriot, and so he's got stacked rosters every year.
Coach Devereaux is Daniel Devereaux. He's the coach of Gainesville, the girls' coach, right? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So, Coach, I did check the state program out in 1992, your senior year, and Potomac wasn't in there, but I did notice you beat Fauquier twice by 20, and they were in there. So I figured you guys must have gone down to Patrick Henry, or somehow you must have gotten tripped up before you got to the state tournament.
No, we had Woodbridge was really, really good that year as well in our district.
That's right.
And so we had to play Fauquier in the semifinals of the district tournament for the third time. We had beat them twice, and we lost to them in the district semifinals, and we didn't even make it to regionals.
Wow.
So yes, they had Dwayne Gilliam, Joe Jones, Joe Johnson that went to Longwood. They had Coach Lansdowne, Dwight. They had Dwight was on that team. I mean, they were really good. They were really, really good.
Yeah, I saw them play I believe they played Chantilly in the state tournament with Tim Fudd. Yeah, I think I saw that. I think I saw that game. What was it like playing for Coach Hayes? You mentioned him, and we both talked a little bit about his man management, his ability to get great players, keep everybody happy. It's a different job when you have that kind of talent, as you know. But what are some of the things you learned from Coach Hayes?
Well, as a player, I don't think I was smart enough to realize, how good of a coach I had at the moment, right? And then the other piece was I had just left a Hall of Fame coach in Louisiana. The coach I played for in Louisiana is the all-time Louisiana winningest coach, Kenny Allman. So, and I came from, and I came bitter, to be honest with you. I really didn't want to be in Virginia. It was kind of a forced move by my parents. And so, I was here a little bitter. And so I probably wasn't, to be honest with you, I probably wasn't the most joyful person or the easiest person to coach. But I loved my teammates. I loved the coaches. Eventually I accepted my fate as being here in Virginia, and it ended up being the best move for me. But Coach Hayes was, even back then, we had a player by the name of Robert Masenko.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Robert was he was a beast, man. He was really, really good. And, Coach, our game plan and our scheme everything was built around him. And I don't think we were probably the most talented team. Woodbridge was, again, really, really good. But I think Coach Hayes really got the most out of us. And I think he was really good to the point where he was able to maximize our abilities and get the most out of us, looking back on it now.
I remember you guys had a little guard that was good that year, right? A 5'8", 5'9" guard, or did I misremember that?
No. So my he was a freshman. The backup point guard was Erskine Fox,
Right.
when he was a senior, won the state championship in '95.
Yeah, that was the team. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, Coach, of all the great players in Potomac that have been there, love basketball, why was it you who ended up being the successor to Kendall Hayes? I mean, there was, as we mentioned earlier, Coach Hayes must have had 20, 25 Division One players. I mean, at
Mhm.
least 15, I would think. And everyone loves basketball. It's a huge job. Everyone, all the Potomac Panther community would love to have that job. But it was you that followed them.
Yeah.
Why do you think it was Coach Honore?
Well, I don't think it was originally designed that way. I think and I think there was a assistant coach by the name of Sean Lublin
Mhm.
that I think was being groomed to succeed Kendall at some point. But then Sean took a different path career wise and stopped coaching. And then I kind of moved up on the assistant coaches chain. And again, I was a guy as an assistant coach. I would be the first one at practice. I didn't mind sweeping the floor. I didn't mind getting the equipment out. I did everything that an assistant coach should, and I really worked hard as an assistant, and so it was just kind of organically. Um, when the time came for Kendall to step down, it was just kind of organic, and it was just a natural thing that, well, it makes sense for Keith, right? Just with all the candidates and the way things had kind of worked out just organically, it made sense that I would replace Kendall. Um, and I had his blessing, right? He came to me and asked me, did I want to do it? And I said, yeah, which looking back on it, I was probably nuts for taking that job.
Yeah.
But I had his blessing. I pat myself on the back because I really paid attention to him and I really learned a lot from him. So, it was some rocky waters at first. But I think I was equipped enough to handle that, get through it, and go on to build it to what I was able to build it to.
Yeah, and I want to get right back to that in a second. Just one more question. I want to ask you about the
Yeah.
'95 team real quickly as your first year as an assistant.
Mhm.
Um, how special was it to win a state championship? You were from Louisiana? You probably
Mhm.
didn't realize I guess it had been 14 years, 15 years since Garfield won the
Mhm.
state championship with Othell Wilson. And
Mhm.
so, Northern Virginia was due for a state.
Sure.
The girls had won it locally, but no
Mhm.
team in the Northern region had won it since '81. That was Robert E. Lee. Um,
Mhm.
Potomac had a great squad. I think they lost one game to Black Hawk up in Pittsburgh at a Christmas tournament, a game that
Mhm.
Kendall Hayes still regrets. But
Yeah.
what made that year so special? Why did that team win it? And what did it mean to you and the community that they won the state championship?
Well, there was a lot of variables that I don't know if people knew about, but that entire team um, had grew up together. Mookie Felder, Tonnell Harris, Calvin Hargett, Erskine Fox, Mike Neal.
Roland Roberts?
Three Roland Roberts. Well, I'm gonna kind of keep rolling out for a
Okay.
second, but those other four guys and guys coming off the bench, they all were from that Georgetown Village community. They
Mm,
all lived in Georgetown Village,
mm,
and so they literally grew up together from elementary school, right? And so they were just so cohesive and they were just so connected that I tell people all the time, when you get a team that's really connected and can police their self, now you're great. And that's what they were, right? A lot of people looked out there and they saw a lot of talent, right? And clearly it was, but it was the cohesiveness. It was their ability to hold each other accountable, their ability to police each other, right? And they became really, really great, and then the fact that they were uber talented with a uber intelligent coach. I mean, it was the perfect storm. And so we were head and shoulders better than everybody else. And then you throw a Roland Roberts in there, right? And now Roland didn't grow up in Georgetown Village. He was a mile away in the
mm.
heart of Newport. So he went to school with all those guys, right? So it wasn't like Roland was an outsider coming in. He grew up with those guys as well, but those other guys woke up and played at the little sand lot court in Georgetown Village, and they went to bed playing. So I think that had a lot to do with their cohesiveness and their accountability to each other and their love for each other. Those guys really, really loved each other. And you know, when you get a team like that, man, they're tough to beat.
Yeah. Let's go back to when you got the job for Kendall Hayes. You started to talk about I rudely interrupted you there.
That's right.
Yeah, sorry about that. So what now that you got the job and you're following a guy that's had so much success, a guy that
Mhm.
you played for, that you had to have a lot of respect for in so many
Mhm.
different ways, is it kind of hard to become your own man right away? Does it take a while to develop your own style? And when the program is basically Kendall Hayes' program for so long.
Mhm. So first off, I was, and I mean this. It's going to be funny when I say this, but I was probably crazy for taking that job.
Mhm.
Right? It was just looking back on it. I don't know if a lot of people realize Coach Hayes retired on a 77 game winning streak, regular season. For 3 straight years, he didn't lose a regular season game. We were like 22-0 for 3 straight years. And then going back into that fourth year, like we didn't lose a game till like middle of that fourth year. So he retired on a 77 game winning streak. I had nowhere to go but down. Like the first game I lost, it was nuclear, right? Like and so, but I was so naive. Thankfully, I was so naive and I was probably just arrogant enough to believe I can win here, right? I can duplicate this. I can be good here, right? I believed in my heart I could. Um, and I think that naiveness really helped me because I was able to block out, right, a lot of people who thought I couldn't, right? You know, you wait, we're gonna go from Kendall to him, you know, and there were a lot of people. My AD told me, he said, "Look, I got a lot of emails when I hired you that people really didn't," and he didn't tell me this till later. People really didn't think you were the right hire. Well, 16 years later, we proved them wrong, you know. But I was smart enough, Julian, to be honest with you. I was smart enough to surround myself with some really, really good guys. Here's a name that was one of my assistants that your eyes are going to get big. A lot of people don't know this. Derek Steele was my very first assistant.
Great coach.
Great coach, great human being, right? And you know, Derek helped me so much, right? He was a former head coach. He was a high level athlete. He was embedded in the education, right? So, you know, I surrounded myself with some really, really good guys. So, you know, so Derek was one of my assistants. You know, then, you know, Sherman had finished playing overseas. I hired Sherman. I hired Brian Hooker, who was out at Highland before Logan,
Mm.
right? And Brian Hooker was my assistant. He went on to Woodbridge to be the head coach at Woodbridge, and then he left to be the head coach at Highland. So I had Brian Hooker with me. And then when Hooker left, Brian left to go take the Woodbridge job. That Chad had left Woodbridge. Chad Anderson was the head coach at Woodbridge for 10 years. I hired Chad Anderson on as an assistant. So, you know, I was just smart enough to hire some really, really good guys that really helped our kids not be just great basketball players, but help them in their just, you know, the growing phase of life. You know, I had Lewis Blackshear, who was he was head of HR for IRS, right? I surrounded those kids with some great men. And there were times where, you know, I couldn't get out of my own way, but they were strong enough personalities where they could talk to me and say, "Coach, it ain't gonna work, buddy. Like we need to divert, you know, or Coach, this is direction we need to go." So, you know, I'm very thankful for the guys that I had surrounding me. Um, and then, you know, my first 2 years at Potomac, man, it's a story in itself. It was tumultuous. Like you know, my first year, I come in, my first day of practice, the first day of practice as the head coach of Potomac, I have a parent come in and We only have 7 players because 6 of them are playing football, right? So I got 7 varsity players in my first practice. Parent comes in, she needs to see 4 of the 7. She tells me that the police are looking for those 4 guys. I'm like, what? And she's like, yeah, the police are looking for them. So they had got in some trouble earlier that day. So now I'm down to 3 players for the first week of practice. Those guys kind of get out of that trouble. I let them come back. I get my football players back. We start the season 12-0.
Wow.
And we go into the Christmas tournament at Mount Vernon. And no, we start. I'm sorry. We start 9-1. We had lost to Franklin County, and we win the Christmas tournament. And I remember saying this to the kids right before the Christmas. I said, "Go home, be with your families. This ain't time to hang out with friends." You know, I go home, take a shower. I get a phone call from one of my players' girlfriend. She said, "Coach, we got a problem. I got one of your players on the phone. He needs to talk to you." So I said, "Hey," I said, "What's up? What's going on?" "Hey, coach, I'm in jail." I said, "Like prison?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "I just saw you like 2 hours ago. What do you mean?" And he's like, "Well, I got in some trouble and I'm arrested." So I'm like, "Oh my God." So come to find out, several of those players got in some trouble again. So I had to dismiss like 3 of those players. And long story short, we kind of fizzled out. It was just too much to deal with. We fizzled out in the end. That was my first season. My second season, can't get worse than that, right? Well, there was years ago, I don't know if you remember this, there was a murder that happened at Popeyes on Dale Boulevard, right? The manager, it was a robbery and they unfortunately shot and killed the manager at Popeyes. Well, I get a call from my AD. We're in the middle of the season. We're doing, we're beginning of the season. We're doing well. I get a call from my AD. Say, "Hey, if the FBI calls you, direct them to the principal." I said, "Bill, why would the FBI call me?" "Well, one of your players on your team has been implicated in a murder."
Wow.
I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah." I said, "Well, what do we need to do?" He said, "Nothing. He hadn't been charged." I said, "So we do nothing?" He said, "He hadn't been charged. Can't do anything." So Julian, literally, I get a phone call from the FBI. Well, I get a phone call from the player. Right after that phone call, I get a phone call from the player. He's like, "Coach, I just got arrested. They took me down to the station and they were asking me. They said they were charging me with trespassing. So now I'm really confused." He said, "But they asked me about a murder, but I don't know what they're talking about." So I was like, "You know what? Let's continue this conversation when I see you. Let's get off the phone." So I get off the phone. Minutes later, I get a phone call from the FBI. "Coach, if you know something and you're not telling us, we're going to arrest you too." So I'm like, what? Like this is my second year. I'm like, wait a minute, like what's going on? So every day for the next month, we show up to practice and there's an FBI car with 2 FBI agents sitting on the hood of their car watching us go in and out of practice. And then I get a phone call from the AD. I would get several phone calls from the AD, and he would say, "Hey, I think they're going to arrest him tonight at the game." So now I'm coaching this game, waiting for this kid to get arrested. Long story short, kid never gets arrested. He had nothing to do with it. They found out his car was the same make and model of the car that was there. And so I went through an entire second year dealing with that situation. And then from there, it started to get better, right? And
Coach, whatever
so
happened to that kid? Did things end up okay for that kid?
Division I football player, went on to be a Division I football player, had a great career, and he has a great life right now.
That's awesome.
Phenomenal life. Yes, it is. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow, what a story.
Yeah.
Well, Coach, when did you feel? When did you feel you had grown into the role and you felt comfortable? Like, we weren't talking about what would Coach Hayes have done. How long did it take for you to feel comfortable as a head coach? Because you have great assistants, but still, you got to be the head guy. You got to be the one making decisions.
Yep. So I went through 3 phases in my coaching career, right? My first, and this is the year, my first 5 years, I kind of regret, right? So the first 5 years of my coaching career, being that I was coming behind Kendall and I was in a pressure cooker, I wanted to win at all costs, right? I just wanted to win. I'd do whatever I needed to do to win. Well, it was a disadvantage to my kids because I felt like I could have been a better coach for them had I looked at things a little different, right? I could have been a better coach for those kids in the first 5 years. And then once I settled in and I realized, you know what, we started to win year 3, 4, and 5. We started to win, but then the second phase of my coaching career that I got into when I became a better coach, I realized I not only wanted to win, but I wanted to do it the right way. Right? It was really important to me that we win and we do it right. Right? We show up every day, we work our tails off, and we just do things the right way. I started to get a lot of phone calls about transfers, and I would literally hang up the phone with the parent and I would call the coach where they're coming from and say, hey, your guy just called me. I'm not sure what's going on. You need to talk to your guy. He's trying to come to Potomac. Like, I have coaches that will attest to that. I would never take a local kid unless he actually moved. So it was important that I win the right way. Last thing I wanted was to have a kid transfer and they say I recruited him. I didn't want that. And then when I became a really, really good coach, in my opinion, which is right around 2014, 2015, when I believe I became a really good coach, I realized it was about the relationships, right? Like the relationships with my players were more important to me than anything, right? Like, I started to do things like we would have conversations. I'd make the players have conversations with me at least once every 2 weeks. They had to sit in my office for at least 15 minutes, and we had to talk about something other than basketball, right? And you would be amazed at some of the stuff that I learned about these kids that I would have never guessed. And it helped me coach them different when I started to understand them and learn them, right? And so that, to me, is when I believe I became a really good coach, is when I realized it's all about the relationships.
Yeah. Well, Coach, in every coach's life, player's life, it's changed when you win a state championship. That's something that you never forget. Not that I know, my sister won one. I guess I've seen it done, but
Yeah.
she won one as a player at Robinson. But you won one in 2014. I tried to find some information about it online. I know
Mhm.
some of your players, Trey Porter played at Mason, Randy Haynes, and Torrey Dixon. But I know you'd lost a big game to Wakefield in the regionals, and I
Yeah.
think Wakefield at that time was in your region. They had broken things up. Talk a little bit about that season and what it meant to you and your life to be a coach of a state champion.
You know, I was always measured against Kendall. From 2006 to 2014, no matter what I did, it was always measured against Kendall. And that's when I was able to break that chain, right? That's when I was validated. He's good, right? He can do this. And so it was almost like a weight was lifted off my shoulders. And that again allowed me to understand and to see kids from a relationship perspective, because there wasn't so much pressure to win at that point. And so I felt like it validated me. It really did. It validated, hey, this guy's pretty damn good, right? Like, he can do this. And I think that's when I stopped being compared, and that's when I stopped being measured against Kendall, right? So, and so fast forward, not to get off the subject, but fast forward to now, I really tried to do that for Anthony at Potomac. Like, I really do my best. The first year I stayed away. I purposely, he asked me to come in and talk, and I said, no, nope. They need to see you as the head coach of Potomac and understand you are the guy. For a while I felt like the substitute teacher,
Yeah.
and I didn't want that for him. So that was kind of my journey. That was kind of how, what that 2014 state championship meant to me. And then 2016 was really an unexpected championship. I thought it was 2017 that we would compete for. But that team, we had did such a really, really good job of coaching that team. And those guys did a really, really good job of bonding and connecting and being accountable, we got good really fast. And that's what the Nana Apoku, Eli Camp, Jeff Gordon, Jamal Washington, all those guys. And we ended up beating a very, very good LC Bird team in the state championship. So, that kind of validated me. But to go back to 2014 when we lost to Wakefield, that left a really, really bad taste in my mouth, man. That game was just there was a lot of variables in that game that I just wasn't happy with, and it just didn't seem right, didn't sit well with me. But it was the best thing happened to us because we were able to refocus. Right? It kind of put us on our heels a little bit, and it changed our sense of urgency. So now instead of going play a Maury team in the state championship, who we thought was going to be in, that's who they had Matt Coleman, Jack Baker was the coach, and that team was really, really loaded. And we thought we would be playing Maury in the state championship. Well, now we got to go play Maury at Old Dominion in their backyard. And it changed our attention. It changed our sense of urgency. And our kids we were brilliant in that game. I mean, we were just unbelievable against Maury. And then, we played Henrico in the state championship with DeMonte Buckingham, and Coach Harmon was on here the other day. I heard him talk about it a little bit. That was a really, really good team as well. They had just won the state championship the prior year. So we knew, we had our hands full with Henrico and our kids' sense of urgency, because our average margin of victory was like 22 points a game that year. Mm. And so, you can tend to get complacent, but that Wakefield game really, brought our sense of urgency back. So it was actually a good thing.
Yeah. And the second state championship, the one that was a surprise, that just kind of further validated that, you've won too. And I mean, Coach Hayes, he's a great coach. And I'm not rubbing this thing because one is a lot, but he never got that second one, even though he was so close with those undefeated teams. But you got that second. That must have really felt good to do it again.
It does. Kendall and I still talk, to this day. We always check in with each other, and, we'll sit every now and then and have some conversations. And he's extremely, people probably don't believe he's extremely funny.
Oh, he's a funny guy. Yeah.
And so he jokes and he'll say, yeah, I don't care if you won 2 state championships, the court still has my name on it. And so, he had said that to me more than once. I said, well, now that I won the second one, once they put my name on the gym, I'll let you keep your court in my gym. Exactly. So it's kind of a little running thing we got, but yeah, it did. It validated me, and it was just, it was. I probably did less coaching then. I had some really good coaches, and I really focused on the relationships. Getting those kids to play hard for us, getting those kids to to do the things that they needed to do, and then I hired good assistant coaches like Sherman, Chad. I let those guys coach and be who they were. So it was really a good situation.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Coach, what about 2021? Coming off COVID, you got to the final again, and you guys lost to Chris Kazemka and the Centerville team, Coach Kevin Harris. What about that season? Is that a source of regret for you that you weren't able to get that third one?
Yeah, I absolutely. I thought, with that particular team, that was a team that Kyle was on. We had Tynell Harris, Caleb Satchel, Keyshawn Rainey, who his sister just won the state championship. Yeah, that was her. I had her older brother. Again, I thought it was COVID, and I just thought it was truly, it was literally unfair, right? Like the VHSL, they hid, and I'm gonna say this. I'll say this out loud. They hid behind it's COVID, and you're lucky you're playing. That was the answer for everything. So these jokers decide we're going to have a state championship, but it's going to be in Fairfax with Fairfax officials. Now, mind you, Fairfax is guaranteed 4 teams in the state tournament every year. Mm-hmm. So we had to go play, and I'm not saying the outcome would have been different had we played somewhere else, because Centerville and Kevin were really good. Like, it could have been the same result had we played at Potomac. But I would have liked to see our chances had we had to play Centerville at Centerville with Fairfax officials. And that just really bothered me, right? It didn't sit well. There was no reason why we couldn't play that game at Robinson.
Yeah.
Right? Like why, if okay, you want to play in Fairfax, fine. Let's go play at Robinson. Right? Like, what if Robinson would have made it to the state championship? We'd have played at Robinson anyway.
Right.
You know what I mean? So if you want to have the game in Fairfax, fine. But let's at least go to Robinson and play. Let's level the playing field just a little bit. You know what I mean? So that was a tough one. And again, I would have bet money that team that we had was at minimal going to make it to the state championship, which we did.
Right.
But then COVID hit, and it just changed our lives, and nobody saw that coming. Right? We couldn't see that coming. But I really wish that particular team would have got a regular, normal high school year. I like to see what we could have pulled off.
Yeah, it was a very turbulent time. Well, let's fast forward to what I believe was your last game as a coach. I came down to watch Sherman. I came all the way down there. It was an amazing environment. I remember it was a late arriving crowd that day, because I remember when I got there, I thought it was going to be a sellout. I remember when I got there was probably about 500 people in that gym when the game started. By the time it was over, both sides were full, not packed, but full. I remember the cheerleaders being incredible, and they were dueling during timeouts.
Yeah.
And you had this transfer from BI believe, named Jalen Harris, coach.
Jalen Harris, yes.
Kendall Hayes, guy was 6'6", could shoot the lights out. You had to guard. He could really stretch the defense. So you went from having a team that was, a solid team that was, several games above 500, to all of a sudden being one of the favorites to be the state championship, win the state championship. And Sherman had to beat you guys to get there. Tell us a little bit about that game. And the ending was unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, great atmosphere. The entire game was back and forth, right? I don't think anybody had a lead higher than 5 points the entire game. And then, we took that thing down to the wire. I think we were up by like 3 with 30 seconds left to go. I think we turned the ball over late a couple times. I outcoached myself that game. I did some things that we typically didn't do, and it bit us in the butt, right? And it cost us. So, I had to swallow that one, because as a coach, one of the things that you don't ever want to do, one of our biggest fears as coaches, is putting our kids on the floor unprepared and being the reason why we lose a game. And I lost that game for our kids by doing some stuff that we just typically didn't do. The bottom line is we took the ball out of Kyle's hand, and the ball should have stayed in his hands, right? We knew exactly what they were going to do. They did it. And I just outcoached myself on that one. And kudos to Sherman. Their guys executed and got it done down the stretch, and they won, right? So, but it was really, really fun. I'm really happy. 2 of his assistants when he left, he took 2 assistants of mine with him. Those guys are still with him. They're doing a phenomenal job over there, and I'm really happy for those guys that they're having the success they're having.
Yeah, it was incredible. Well, Coach, this has been great. I did want to talk a little bit. I think you're wearing the logo, Kyle logo.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit? Yeah, there it is. I can hardly see it. And I'll make sure I'll leave information for folks who like to get it. I think there's a foundation. There's some camps. Can you talk about some of the things that we are doing to keep Kyle's memory alive?
So one thing is over at C4 Explosion, Charlie Chandler. He's over in the Gainesville area. He has a facility out there where he does a lot of strength and conditioning training. He has some high level guys in there. Kyle, right before he went to college, was training at C4. And, Charlie and them did a phenomenal job with him, getting him ready for college. His body looked he looked like a college athlete when we took him to Wingate. I mean, he was physically ready to compete. And a lot of it had to do with, Charlie and C4 and their preparation to him. And so they have a scholarship that they give out, maybe a scholarship or two every single year where they give a player, I mean, they give guys an opportunity. I think they got to write an essay or something and submit it, and then they'll win a scholarship, the Kyle Honore scholarship over there at C4. They painted his number on the wall, which is really, really cool. So we're very grateful for C4 and Charlie and those guys over there. Potomac, we have that Kyle Honore tip off, and Anthony has just every year it gets better and better and better, and the teams get better, and they go out of their way. It's not just a money grab, right? Like they go out of their way, and Anthony makes sure that the focus is on Kyle, right? Like they put out a table. I mean, he's gathered pictures from everywhere, and they actually print them out, frame them, and they set up a whole display with all of Kyle pictures, different type of pictures from when he was a kid to like a toddler, all the way up until he was leaving Potomac. They bring out a big screen TV and they do a continuous feed of his highlights in the lobby area as people come in. There's his pictures. They print out pictures and they put them all over the gym. So you're not just hearing the name Kyle Honore. You get to put a picture. You get to put a face with a name. And then, the awards and just the way the tournament is ran. It's truly, we see tip-offs in people's name every year, but you have to admit, sometimes you can go into those tournaments, you hear the name and you have no idea who the person is, right? And so Anthony does a phenomenal job of keeping the focus on Kyle while providing a great slate of games throughout the day. So obviously we're very, very appreciative of that. And right now we are working, and this is long overdue. Should have been something that was done a long time ago. I didn't realize how hard it was to create a foundation. Like it's not an easy task, right? There's a lot of legalities because we want to do it right. We don't want just to, we really, we want people to give and donate and have tax write-offs and, whatever they need to do. And we have to create a committee, a treasurer, a secretary. We're putting together a foundation in Kyle's name, Kyle Honore Foundation, that our goal is to have it completed by the end of the year. And it's going to provide, we're going to provide a lot of things through this foundation. Obviously, we're going to start with a guy, a male and a female player, and provide scholarship money, right? For athletes, particularly basketball players right now that are going to go to college, and will provide, monetary funds to help offset some of their costs. Okay. And then I'd like to do something a little fun with it where I'll blast out an email to all high school coaches. We'll start in Prince William County, male and female basketball coaches. If they would email me their practice schedule for the year, and their players numbers, shoe size, sweatsuit size. We're just going to do a pop-up one day, and we're going to provide them with sweatsuits with the logo, their team name on the arm, and sneakers for the entire team. We're just literally going to pop up at a practice one day and surprise everybody with, the entire team sweatsuits and sneakers. So we have some good ideas that we want to do, but we've got to finish putting this thing together. There's some legality things that we're working through right now, and then we're going to get it going, and we're going to make sure, he lives on forever. They say when you stop saying a person's name, they die twice, and it's our goal to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah. Well, I'm so thankful that I had a chance to see him play. and
Yeah.
he definitely left an impression on me. And thanks for all you do, Coach. And I'm sorry for all that you had to go through.
Mhm.
And I also want to thank Anthony Mills. I'd mentioned there was two coaches in Potomac history, and that span. But then
Yes.
Coach Mills, who played there, has done a
Yes.
great job of coming in and keeping going what you guys have built, and also Kyle's name as well as you just laid out. I did want to end with how have your other boys dealt with it? Are your boys okay? Have they been able to deal with Kyle's loss?
You know, grief is kind of weird. One of the things I told my family when we first got together after it happened, I said, listen, even though we all lost the same person, we all lost someone different. And we have to respect how we all grieve because none of you knows what it is for a father to lose a son.
Mhm.
I have no idea what it is for a mother to lose a son.
Mhm.
And I certainly don't have any idea what it is for a brother to lose a brother. So we all can't, our grief is going to look different and we have to respect it. And so, you know, we've gotten to a place now where, you know, the best way I can explain it, Julian, and not to speak for them, but I think I know them pretty well. We've learned how to function through pain,
Mhm.
right? We've learned how to be productive through pain because it's weird. It hits you at random times of the day, right? It's not like you see his picture and then it hits you. Like I could literally be working and it pops in my head and then you got to learn how to deal with it. You got to learn how to manage it. And so the same for the boys, right? It comes and goes at different times, but I'm super proud of how they've handled it. I'm extremely proud of how you know they're vocal about it. We just had a conversation with the two oldest boys about 2 weeks ago, 2 Sundays ago. They were over here. We sat at the table and we had a cow conversation, and they expressed some stuff that 2.5 years later we didn't realize. So it's cool that they verbalize it because whereas my wife, she likes to see pictures and she wants to see videos. And some of us, we're just not there yet, right? And so we've done a really good job as a family respecting how each one of us grieves different. And so it's helped and it's gotten us through. But we're a resilient family, Julian.
Mhm.
Like we're resilient. Um, we're gonna fight it. We're gonna make it, and we're gonna we're gonna honor his name, and we'll be okay.
Yeah. Well, Coach. Well, thanks for all that. I'm sorry, I don't know your wife's name.
Nicole.
Nicole. Yeah, I want to give my regards to her and her loss as well, and
Thank you for letting us
all that she has done. And obviously that's a very painful thing for her as well.
know.
But look, Coach, I just want you to thank
Mhm.
you for doing this. I've been wanting to reach out for you for a long time. I didn't know your level of interest in
Mhm.
doing it, and I'm so
Yeah,
glad you did this.
yeah,
You
yeah,
made this easy for me because I have to
yeah.
admit I was a little bit concerned of how because it's not easy to talk about
Sure.
such loss, but it was amazing to talk about Kyle. But it was also amazing to talk about your career, all you've given to the community,
Yeah.
the rest of your family, all the boys that you've coached.
Mhm.
Just you left an amazing legacy, and I
Mhm.
get the feeling you're not done yet. You have still a lot to give the basketball community
Yeah.
and otherwise in the Prince William area.
Mhm. Yeah, love it, man. And again, this show is, it's some of the guys you've had on here, like the coach, like Will Robinson. Coach Robinson's a friend of mine. I talked to him, and just amazing. It's hard to keep my attention for an hour. Uh, even when you have your panel of guys on, the discussions you guys have, you guys touch on some really important topics, and you guys do a really good job. Coach Bentley, Coach Houston, Sherman, Poindexter, Doug, all those guys are some really, really high level guys that I respect a lot, and I respect your show, and this is a wonderful platform for Northern Virginia basketball, and I thank you for it.
No, thanks for saying that. I'm so proud that to have you on. If I could ever get a Sherman to come out of his shell, I think I could really take that show to the next level. If I could get him to stop being so shy.
Well, just tell him if you really want to set him off, just tell him, hey, I heard Robert Hall was a better player than you. Oh, he'll lose it then.
Robert
You'll
Hall.
hear more than you want to hear. But no, Sherman was just an outstanding player at Potomac, man, and he was that Joker was really really good, man. He was fun to watch.
Oh, you've had, I mean, this is so many amazing players and characters, and
Mhm.
but Potomac history is, but if there was always a divide between the northern region and northwest region because we just didn't play.
Right.
So we knew you guys. We played summer leagues down there,
Mhm.
and but it was different because it was different leagues.
Yeah.
You guys were a little bit different to us. The kids down there were a little bit tougher. We thought
Mhm.
always a little better athletes down there. But I
Yeah.
think the Potomac story needs to be told more north of the Occoquan River because you guys had so many athletes, so many titles,
Yeah.
and just so many great coaches like yourself. But again, Coach, I really appreciate your time. This has been great, and maybe at some point I would love to get you on with Coach Hayes and Coach Robinson. Get some of the, if you don't mind, the old timers
Oh,
on.
that'd be great, man. I'd love just to sit in a room and listen to those guys, man, because I mean that's some high level stuff right there when you just say those two names. So that'd be fun.
Those are two competitive guys too, aren't they?
Yes, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
well, look, Coach, look, enjoy the rest of your day. Really appreciate your time, and folks, I'm going to leave information about Kai Honore in the
Sure.
comment section. So folks,
Yeah, sure. Just whatever. We love the guy. We I want to thank the community. I want to thank everybody, man. They've been wonderful to us, and they still continue to do so. We're going to honor him. We're going to keep his name alive. That's my job as a father now, to make sure people understand who he was and how great he was.
absolutely, Coach. So, and again, I'm just so glad I got a chance to see him play.
Thank
I
you.
went all the way, I drove an hour down to Patriot for that game, and I'm so glad that I did.
Well, I'm sorry we didn't. Sherman's probably happy, but I'm sorry we didn't pull it out.
Yeah, you forgot one very painful moment. There was a turnover with like 10 seconds ago that one of your players made, and I don't blame you for not bringing it up.
Right.
But that was a painful one. I think if they,
That's the one I'm referring to when I say I
yeah,
outcoached myself, right?
yeah,
The ball should have been in Kyle's hands,
yeah,
and because we knew exactly what he was going to do, and he did it, and I outcoached myself.
yeah.
So again, kudos to him. But yes, very painful.
Yeah, that was a great game, but a
Yeah,
very very unfortunate ending for Potomac, and I'm sure Sherman doesn't have too many regrets about it. So,
yeah.
but anyway, Coach, again, I really appreciate your time, and let's
Thank
do
you.
it. Let's keep in touch.
Absolutely. Have a good one, and
All
thanks
right,
for
Coach,
having me.
appreciate you, buddy.